Can you hear us? Ernst. You can hear me, I don't think you can. Just 2 seconds. Okay. Try that now. Yes. It's just setting up this actual Skype connection. It doesn't seem to be holding. Doesn't seem to be holding. What about new terms? That should be hit now. Say something again, Paul. What about that? That's it now, Paul. That's Skype. I don't know why that is. Sorry about this, Paul. We need to get that sorted. Let's get Skype screen, do you know what I mean? That should be hit. Your mic showing up now. Yeah, I think that should be hit. Paul, I just double check it. That's live. Still saying nothing for you. Is that any better? Echo.
No, Mark. No apologies.
That's not going to work. I know that myself. That's not worked. How's that? You're Paul there.
Can you hear me, lads? That's it. That's it.
I don't think they can hear me now.
I can hear you.
That's it, Mark. Sorry,
Is
sir.
that us now?
Yeah.
I didn't even click any of them, it just started working again. Need to have a look at this, Paul. Right,
Yeah.
on you go, bud.
Okay. Hello and welcome to episode 64 of Celtic Rumours TV, the Bawz and Bovril podcast, with your hosts Mark and myself, Paul. Joining us tonight, we have Terence, Ter161 from our forum page, to the podcast CelticRumours.co.uk, where Celtic supporters discuss all things Celtic. On the show tonight, we take a look at the latest news and transfer gossip around the club, the season so far under Ange, youth players stepping up to the first team this season, new Celtic CEO Michael Nicholson, are we right to have an early winter breaks this season, and of course anything from the live chat that you guys wish to discuss, please let us know. Firstly, Mark, for a few shout outs, and our last shout out for the Hampton, Mark, I think.
We'll be winding that up, Paul.
Yep.
Quick shout outs to usual suspects: Tim Alloy at Glasgow Green, Rich and his family, Dempsey boy, John UI, he's going through a bit of a tough time now, so all the best to young John. And if you've been on the forum, you'll know it. Sadly, Mikey seems to have contracted this new variant of COVID or whatever. It's Omicron or something, isn't it, Paul? But he's just really poorly again, and his wife's got the same symptoms in that. So just hope that both of them recover for that as soon as possible. He's a bit of a tough time the last few months, especially, you know what I mean, getting married and that. It should be a happy time for them. And he's went through COVID, and then now he's caught this new thing and that. So get well soon, Mikey, mate. The Foodbank, that's we're collected. We're well over 7,000 over the 5 year, and we've actually raised £1,315 this year. So everybody that's donated, thanks very much. It's really appreciated. The link's that's still in the description box below if you still want to put anything in, but I'll be winding it up over the next couple of days. But just really thanks very much to everybody that helps out with all the charity stuff that we do. We're back up at 516 subs, Paul, on YouTube, so it's creeping up again. So thanks again to everybody that joins us on here, guys like Davey. I don't know who else is in the live chat, my mates anyway, but just thanks to the lads that come on every night when we're live. Guys like Terence that come on, Mikey that comes on, Barry, Young John, a lot of them. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and remember to hit the like button. Just behalf of myself and Paul and everybody at Celtic Rumours, the football rumours sites, hope you've had a smashing Christmas, and I hope that 2022 is a great year for you. Hail.
FC Update, a Dutch sports website, claimed that the Hoops could take advantage of outer contract dispute between Icelandic forward Albert Goodson and his club Hervarhaven. Talks between the two parties have broken down, and Goodson can be signed in a pre-contract when the transfer opens in a couple of days in January. We are led to believe Celtic are still at an advanced stage of the contract talks between the trio of the Japanese league Rio Haiti, Yukazashi Idehuji and Dishan Mida. Talks are so well going. Japan sports media are also confident that the deals will go through in the next couple of days. But reports have come out that Dishan Mida was in London this week doing a medical, but Japan's number one sports journalist Dan Outwitz has poured cold water on this and said it was just Twitter news. Celtic have indicted talks regarding a new link to bring Cameron Victors to Parkhead on a permanent deal. The on-loan sports striker has become a key figure for Ange at Celtic so far this season. A deal between around £6 million to £10 million is being reported, and Ange is confident that Celtic will get this deal over the line. Also, it's being reported that Celtic are in talks to get a deal to get Jota signed on a permanent deal also before the end of the season. That's it for the transfer rumours. At the moment, Mark will now bring Terence onto the show.
I think he's already there. You there, Terence?
I am indeed, James. Good evening. How are you?
Just good, Terence.
Good. Thanks very much again for coming on, Terence.
Just before we move on, Terence, just with the rumours going around there, it's key that Celtic tried to retain Cavan Vickers and Yotta before kind of any deals are done, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I said this to you even beforehand, Paul. Like Cameron Vickers, he would be the priority. He'd be my number one. The guy's rock solid, like, and obviously Jota as well. But Vickers for me, because it's in a position where we kind of have been struggling for the last 12, 18 months until he's come in and he's made a huge difference. Yeah, look, Jota and Vickers, to get the two of them over the line, it would be brilliant. And then if they can add the three Japanese lads, and I know they probably won't go down the line, but I'd love to see them go for someone like Lewis Ferguson, especially because if McGregor is supposedly out with COVID, or you can see the way it seems to have affected James McCarthy, even though he had a cracking game the other night, I thought. I'd love to see him go for the likes of Lewis Ferguson as well. I know they probably won't, but I agree with you. The two boys would be.
I don't know, Terence, we spoke about that before on here. I think it would be a dereliction of duty at Celtic if Lewis Ferguson was available and they weren't in for him. We've spoken about it before. See all this Celtic Rangers thing. I don't think that would come into young boys. I don't think that would come into his thinking. Even Barry's come out and said that. I mean, we've spoken about it before. The Ferguson family's not like that. They're no bitter. They're Rangers men, but they're not like bitter Rangers. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Kind of thing. That's just a kind of public persona that Barry kind of got over the years because he kind of swaggering about the park and that stuff. But I think he'd be a fantastic signing for us. And there's been a few of the lads on the live chats and on podcasts previously said the exact same thing. So I don't think anybody would turn down the chance. I think maybe he's got one eye in England right enough, but he's kind of in a bit of falling out with Aberdeen because he knocked back an offer for somebody in England, and he's no a highly paid player at Aberdeen or that. He's one of the lowest paid players. I mean, remember he came for Accies. But anything's a decent wage coming for there, so I don't see a problem with why Celtic are they looking at Lewis Ferguson.
No, I don't either, and I agree with you as well. You're always going to get the narrow-minded side of things where people go, oh, you shouldn't go for him because his dad played for Rangers and his uncle played for Rangers. Like, as I said this before, and it's people should have a look and see about Kenny Dalglish or Danny McGrain. They're two guys that were voted on like the greatest Celtic team of all time, and Kenny Dalglish was a season ticket holder at Ibrox, to my knowledge. When he was growing up, he used to always go to the Rangers games. So, like, I think Lewis Ferguson would be a fantastic signing for Celtic. And I've said it numerous times, like yourself in here, Mark. And I think if he came to Celtic, it would be great. I hate to use the term, but it would be stepping stones for him to go further in the Premiership if that's what his goal was further down the line.
Probably if he's going to the Premier League, then it's a kind of lower level Premier League team, kind of team that's maybe struggling. But if he comes to Celtic for a few years, you step him up a level, you're maybe getting to like catch the eye, you like your Leicesters, your West Hams, and they're kind of mid-level teams in that.
Yeah, big time, and that's what I would love to see because I think he'd be phenomenal in Celtic. I really would. I think he'd be. I think personally, someone like Lewis Ferguson would only last at Celtic 2 or 3 seasons because he'd shine so well in a team that's going forward all the time that he'd be snapped up down south in no matter time.
Just going back to what we were saying about Carter Vickers, imagine we'd been able to keep a hold of Ayer this year. Partnership of Carter Vickers and Ayer in the centre of defence.
Mm-hmm. Unbelievable, won't it be?
Aye. I mean, again, I thought Starfelt had another wee wobble the other day, but not everybody's not going to give you a 10 out of 10 every week, do you know what I mean? But Starfelt just maybe needs to try and, I don't know,
I think Mark he's easily wound up, and it's affecting his game. Then that he doesn't like a rough tackling if he doesn't get it, because it was kind of after that thing again that like he started getting a few rough tackles and the decisions weren't going his way, and then he started losing his way then in the game again. Do you think maybe that's it, like that he loses concentration easily, that it's affecting his game? Like we see it with Big Julian last season, he started losing himself in games against big defenders.
Somebody said, if it was the first game, they had a bit of nightmare in. Wasn't it St Mirren? Was it a St Mirren game, wasn't it? He didn't do too well in that one. But I saw a few people on Twitter said it, and then somebody I was speaking to on an email said it as well, that they'd heard that he was carrying an injury. Which, maybe again, it's like Kyogo. I mean, Kyogo was... I don't think... He didn't really get injured the other day. You know what I mean? He was kind of took off as a precaution, but maybe there's other players that are pushing themselves that wee bit extra when they shouldn't really be doing it, Paul, but they need to be doing it now.
They need, because the lack of being in the squad.
Aye.
You know, moving on. Sorry, Terence, Scott.
I just think what Starfield needs to do is he needs to stop being a 7 or an 8 out of 10 one week and then being a 2 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10. He needs to kind of find a happy ground where he might be a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 one week, and if he's not playing great, he's maybe a 6 out of 10.
That's what I say with Turnbull. It's like what I say with Turnbull, Terence. It's peaks and troughs. He's either brilliant or he's not very good. It's finding that middle ground, finding the consistency in a performance, as you say, just playing to that 7 every week. That's their basis. Yeah. That's where they start from.
And the problem with it, Mark, you see as well, is you might get away with it a little bit if you're Turnbull because you've got cover there behind you, so to speak. But when Starfield makes the mistake, it's generally like if a goalkeeper makes a mistake, the centre forward goal, it may cost a goal, or there's a goal scored. So it nearly looks 10 times worse than if, say, someone in the middle misses a couple of bad tackles and they're breaking through. There's always a defender behind them. Whereas when it's the defender that does the mistake, it's just glaringly obvious, and it makes them. They stand out big time for me. Like.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, right.
Moving on, we just talked briefly about the game on Stephen's Day, Boxing Day. Is that what you lads in Scotland call it, Mark? Celtic played St Johnstone. Celtic. What you call it, St Stephen's Day as well, so?
Of course we do.
How am I supposed to know, Mark? You're part of the UK, like, you know, Jesus Christ. You know?
Moving that.
St Johnstone won, Celtic 3, Abada with 2 goals, and he beat on with 1. Began kind of tweaking his formation. I think it was kind of a 3-4-3 formation. Terence, do you think was that just due to injuries, or do maybe Ange has tweaked that he needs 2 strikers maybe up front against defensive teams?
I'd say it might have been 6 of one half dozen the other, Paul, but probably down to the fact that, you know, he needed to push, say, Liam Scales further forward because he didn't have anyone maybe to play on that side. So maybe he was just dealt a hand where he had to kind of go with the kind of 3 at the back and maybe fellas dropping into positions. But like, I mean, for one of the that was one of the best performances I've seen from Celtic this season. There was certain that game. I thought Near Beaton was fantastic. I thought it was the best game I've seen James McCarthy play for Celtic. Comfortably, he set up the goal. Abada to me looked like he was after gaining 2 or 3 yards of his pace back. He looked much sharper than he has been in the previous games. And I know you're going to go into it, so I won't go into too much detail. The couple of young guys that were there that were involved in young Dawson that came on, I thought he had a fine game as well. So, I mean, I thought for a game that, considering what had happened the previous few days against St Mirren, it was a game you're kind of thinking like, oh, this could be a tricky one. But really, I mean, Celtic were very, very comfortable in that whole game, I thought. Very, very.
I actually think maybe Ange should be going down that route against these kind of defensive teams, going 3 at the back and kind of more of an attacking option, you know, push more men kind of forward, because there's really no need to have 4 at the back when we're going to have most of the ball anyway, is there?
But it's the way you play, Paul, isn't it?
You
know what I mean? It's like these inverted fullbacks and that. Can you play inverted fullbacks when you're playing 5-2?
No.
I know, but I think it was just what it was. What is it, like square pegs and round holes? That was just what was available to us on that.
Because we said that, Mark, that I said it loads of times that Ange needs to tweak his formation because there's certain players in the squad that aren't able to play the formation that Ange wants to play. So that's a bit of Ange kind of using his head, really, into tweaking the formation to suit the players rather than to suit his style. You know?
a lot of the time, Paul, we play at the actual, we going about formations and things like that, but I mean, see when you watch football, Paul, really, it is just where players stand at kick-off and things like that. Do you get what I mean? It's where they actually run and move on the park. I don't, maybe for certain games he'll change into different formations, but I don't think he'll change much. The actual, what will just become known as his normal tactics and his normal formation. I don't think he'll deviate for that very often, Paul.
Just going on what Terence was saying about Zabada, and if you read up Zabada from last season, his preferred position across the front three is kind of in the middle mark, kind of a David Turnbull or Tom Roderick role. Like he's before kind of receiving the ball and then running. But we kind of saw Bada at his best at the weekend with his finishing as well, and he could have had about 3 or 4 goals in this game, couldn't he?
He's definitely unlucky not to get at least a hat trick. I'm going to go back to what Terence says. I think it was mere. It just looked sharper and quicker, Paul. We spoke about it. I mean, I've not gave him penalties, but I've given him a bit of grief for the last few games, Paul, because I just thought people were slagging Mikey Johnson off, whereas Abada was just an empty jersey on the opposite side of the pitch. But I think he did look a lot sharper the other day, and he did seem to be getting that wee burst of pace back as well, which I said as well that he seemed to have lost. That's what I put it down to the performances. I don't think he was actually fully back up to match fitness or match sharpness, Paul. And I think maybe the other day just showed that he is back to his best, because I totally agree with Terence. He just looked that bit quicker when he was running and everything.
And of course, there was a bit of history made on Sunday. I don't know if actually two of you knew about this. After a year and a half, in the 35th minute and 56 seconds, Barkas realised that he could use his gloves in the Celtic goal when he came out and caught the ball comfortably. And I thought Barkas, Terence, had a good game, and he actually looked We've seen Celtic give away goals from set pieces when we said Joe Hart could have come from, and look, we saw Barkas comfortably taking corners at the weekend.
He done what he had to do, Paul. He done what he had to do, and he done it well. He distributed the ball well. He didn't really have many shots on him, but he took a few crosses. But look, you can't
fault him for the goal either.
No.
You can't put any of that blame at Barkas's door. That was some header for that lad.
It didn't make a difference in goals there. It was a goal. That had nothing to do with Barkas. You'd be blaming at Starfield for a poor pass. But it was a cracking finish, so it didn't make a difference who was in goals there. But it's an all round. He was put in there. I'm sure every Celtic supporter was going. I was myself going, oh my God! But he did what he had to do, and he did it well. He distributed the ball well. He took a few crosses. As I said, St. Johnstone didn't offer too much, but you can only judge him what he had to do, and he done it well.
IFP says you have to calm down, Paul.
But just going up to like, do we still expect him to go, Mark, or is he better than Bain? Do you know what I mean? This is what I'm trying to say. Like, you know what I mean? Do we fought to have Barkas as a backup than Bain?
I thought he had a good enough game the other day. Just what Terence is saying again, I thought he played well the other day. He done what was asked him. Is he better than Bain?
Was it down to Mark that confidence is going through the whole team at the moment? Like we saw how bad our defence was last season, that there was no confidence there, and we're always saying maybe an extra year for Barkas will get, and maybe him learn up to Joe Hart.
It's a big maybe bit, Paul, and it's a lot of money we've got tied up in him.
Like that's what I'm saying. Like you don't want to
the transfer fee plus the wages that will be paying him and things like that. I still think it would be best for all parties involved if he just moved on in January. Probably a loan in January and then maybe a permanent move come the summer. I still think he'll come back and bite us in the bum one day in Europe or something like that. I've said that if we signed him. We'll get rid of him and then we'll come up against him in Europe in 2 or 3 years' time and he'll have the game of his life. That's what will end up happening.
But it happened, wasn't it? Remember that, was it Berg or something like that, the fella for, was it Malmo or something like that a couple of years ago, Celtic. He came back, he scored 2. But I'd agree with Mark. Listen, you have to cut your losses with Barkas. What's the point in having even a young lad like, as we mentioned there, Paul, the other day, young Toby? You know, surely Celtic kind of go, look, we tried Barkas, it didn't work, move on. Bain is there as a possible backup. Hazard is there as a possible backup. Let your man Toby, as you said, be under the wing of Joe Hart. Let him develop. Look at Joe Hart. Let him train like Joe Hart. Let him see the way Joe Hart just looks after him.
So long as this young guy going to last, but see if he did become our number one, it just, I mean, look, going back even to years with, I've lost his name, it was David Marshall. Back even Fraser Foster, he came here and kind of made a name when they were young guys, and then we thought the grass was greener kind of thing. And I've said this before on the podcast, is maybe the way in future, is it the way we should stop looking to like nurture and bring on our own keepers? Should we just look at guys like Joe Hart, Craig Gordon, that are going to have, there's still a good few year in them at our level, but they're maybe not good enough for a Premier League team or that. So should we maybe just continue, once Joe Hart's finished, look at, I don't know, whoever's going to be in that kind of 33 to 35 age group again in a couple of years.
But this fella Toby, Mark, is exceptional. Like this young lad is good. Like, you know, this, I might be surprised if Celtic will be able to hang on to him.
But you could have your cake and eat it, so to speak, in the sense of have a fella like Toby and develop him, get him into the frame, and if he does go, if he goes, you hopefully Celtic make good money on him. But you can still at the same time go and look for a Craig Gordon, a Joe Hart. There's always going to be those keepers that are.
Well, if you look at it, right, Celtic have 3 young goalkeepers at the moment who are good. We have young Mullen, who was on the bench the other day. Right, he gets some game time in the Colts League with Toby, and then we have Ross Doohan, who's on loan at Charmer at the moment, who's actually first choice for Charmer. Like, so there's 3 good goalkeepers, and keeping Barkas is going to hinder their development. I nearly sell Barkas and Hazard. I think Hazard, Mark, he's 21, 22 now. Yeah.
Get ready Hazard and keep Bain.
Hazard has tried it too, Mark, and he hasn't really worked out, has he?
Yeah, but he's got youth in his side. He could get better. Bain isn't going to get any better.
No. You know, that's my opinion anyway. I would keep Bain just to have another experienced keeper with Joe Hart, and then develop the likes of Doohan, Mullen and Toby. You know, I can't see Hazard ever becoming a Celtic number one. You know,
I'd agree with you, Paul. I'd agree with you as well. I don't. I know Bain isn't the best in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not the worst either. I mean, for me, okay, he has the odd crazy mistake in him, but I think the guys actually of the other guys that are there, he's probably the best shot stopper there. My opinion. But yeah, I think I'd agree with you. Like if Celtic had Hart, Bain, and developing that young lad Toby, and with the mindset that he's going to be realistically the number 2, and try and give him a bit of game time against giving Joe Hart a rest against, like I said, maybe some of the lesser opposition or some of the cup games, or if they're lower league teams are playing. That's the route I'd be looking at personally, but that's only
like how old is Hazard now? 21, 22. Like, and I mean, if he's not really pushing, like, what would he be now at Celtic? Would he be 4? Barker's maybe 5.
But if a team has got like a number 1 keeper, Paul, that's sitting at like 21 years of age, and you need to be, I mean, over the years, Paul, history shows that you've got to be exceptional to become, I don't know up in Scotland that maybe, but to be regarded like a Crow Shurham that is one of the best young keepers. If you're in that mould, if you go back to like young guys like David De Gea and things like that, but they're few and far between. There's no many teams have got young goalkeepers as their number 1 choice. I just think that Bain's a bit more longer in the tooth. He's not going to get any better, whereas Hazard, there's a chance he will get better. I'm not saying he'll ever become Celtic's number 1 either, but I don't know. It's a weird gene because I wouldn't say that any of them's better than. I wouldn't say Bain's better than Hazard.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's what I'm saying. Like there's nothing between the 3 of them. Do you know what I mean? And none of them are going to come to, like, so two have to go to develop the rest of the young keepers, Doohan, Mullin and Toby. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
All,
the Jabber job, he said the highlight of Barker's Celtic here was the catch the other night.
yeah, and that was, yeah, there was the history made, like, you know what I mean? You
the
know?
only similarity between all three of them, Bain, Hazard, and Barkas, is neither of the three of them can take a cross.
Mhm.
That's the similarity. None of them can catch a ball when it crosses. None of the three of them. So from that side of it, that's why you'd be hoping to try and develop that lad Toby, and hopefully he's the real deal, because the three lads, like, if any of those three lads are in goals, it will put the fear of God in you. There's no question about it. You won't have a remotely near level of same confidence as obviously Joe Hart, but Joe Hart is streets ahead of those guys.
Like, you look in the opposite side of the city, like, the lads have Al McGregor, and when he retires, Mark, they've nothing come through, because I've looked, like, there's no one there really challenging. I leave Celtic have some options of.
Is that McCrory, young McCrory? Is he still with Rangers?
He's still there, yeah, but would you raise him?
No, he's nothing great. No,
Yeah,
definitely no.
do you know what I mean? And
neither, I mean, McGregor's not the keeper he was. Just
No.
we spoke about that before, and IFP's in the chat. IFP said to his laddie that McGregor's worth 20-30 points to him a season. And he was for years, he really was for years, but he's nowhere near the capabilities of where he was before either.
Exactly. Moving on to the season so far, Celtic second in the table, 6 points behind leaders Rangers. We've played 20 games, won 14, drew 3, lost 3, goals for 42, goals against 12, goal difference 30, points 45. This time last season after 20 games, goal difference 32, and we were at 42 points. So we're just 3 points better off than last season. And why is there so much hype about Andrews? Is basically what I'm asking here, when we're only 3 points. Us Celtic fans are so optimistic about this season. Looking back to last summer, 4 months were wasted by the board chasing Eddie Howe, losing our captain, losing our 2 highest scorers, our best defender, 2 peak age midfielders, transfers late coming in, transfers missed. Sorry, just to find where it is. And looking ahead to what we have, we've an early winter break. We're still very much in the title race. We've European football after Christmas. We've our first trophy, and we've an upcoming transfer window. Mark, 3 points is where we are realistically better off this season than we were last season. What's the difference? Why is it so much? Ange getting so much kind of a more.
First off, I'd say it's the way we're playing, Paul. The fans can see that. How I mean, we've got to remember, I've said it before, how long's Ange been here? You know what I mean? You can always bring up like numbers and facts and stuff like that, things like that, Paul, to kind of, as you're saying, we're only 3 points better off, but the actual feeling around the club with the fans, the way the team's playing, even the way the team, you can see like a team unity, Paul. Maybe spoke about, me and you spoke about it, Ange.
Oh, I'm not criticising Ange, I'm just putting together a topic, like, you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but it's just, I don't know if I train of thought what we were going to say, but it's just everything, Paul. The fans are buying into what Ange is trying to do. We can see what he's trying to do, and it's working. We're enjoying watching the team play. There's been a wee few minor blips here and there, but the difference for Ange came in, the respondency, even the support to the actual feeling, the way the players are performing, the way there seems to be a kind of unity with the squad and things like that. It's just night and day. We just seem to be on the park, they seem to be on the right path.
And especially, Terence, like, considering the amount of injuries we've had this season, and like the rebuild isn't even half done this season, like, and to be only 6 points behind Rangers and still in the title race, it's a big achievement.
We've won a cup.
Yeah, we won the first cup on hand, like, you know what I mean? You know?
Oh yeah, it's exactly like Mark said, though. All the difference from last year to me is that it's a team, but it's a happy team. Guys want to be there. Guys want to play for Ange. Guys will. You see guys like Kyogo willing to go on the field. He knows he's injured, but he's going to try and play. It's like Mark said. It's day and night compared to last season. You have unity, like from the management team. They're all with each other. Ange has them all around each other. They're all one. All the players are one. It's night and day that the difference between last season and this season. And it's like the players want to play for Celtic. Players want to be there. They want to play for their manager. They have a manager that sticks up for them. They have a manager that believes in them. They have a manager that believes in the system. They have a manager that doesn't take any bull from anyone off the pitch to say whatever they want about Celtic. And he's the first man that will defend them. And he's the man who'll take the blame. If there's something wrong, he'll never turn around and go, well, he did this and he did that and he didn't do this. He'll go, I'm the manager. I make the calls. It's my fault.
I even get back to the defeat at Ibrox and that. I mean, he held his hands up right away, Terence, and says, I shouldn't have played Kyogo out on the left.
Yeah, and that's what...
You can't, the press can't even have a pop at him or that. Because we all knew he'd made a mistake. He knew he made a mistake. And he held his hands up and said, look, I made a mistake. So the press couldn't even come out with the kind of, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing kind of line. Do you know what I mean? There was nothing negative the press could say about that, apart from that he did make a mistake playing Kyogo out on the left.
Exactly. And if you compare that, Mark, to say when Celtic got knocked out of the Champions League by Terence Farrell, he basically came out and there's players in there that want to be here. There's a complete difference. His whole thing was, well, there's lads in there that don't want to be there. Basically, it wasn't my fault. They don't want to play for Celtic, so what am I supposed to do? As opposed to Ange coming out and going, I got it wrong. I played them out there. I should have played them here. The blame lies at me, no one else. And like, if you're a player or you're a supporter in particular, and you're listening to that, you're going, I like this guy because he doesn't hide away from it, and he's transformed everything in regards to the pitch in 6 months. That's all he's been there, 6 months, and it's as Marcus said there, it's day and night compared to what it was last.
This year as well, we've been creating more chances. We're passing at more of a higher tempo. We're conceding less chances at goal. With a squad hammered by injuries, players who we would classify as fringe players, Mark, are able to come in and step in to the system. Like,
players who be classed as useless, Paul.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
they've been given free transfers. You know what I mean? Let's not kid it.
Yeah, like these are benefits, Mark, of a manager who wants to utilise everything at his resources at a club. Like, and we'll talk more about the youth system in a minute, but like, it just shows the benefits, Mark, of having the Courts League and having our young players get first team football in the Courts League as well this season, isn't it? That they're able to come in, match fit, and able to get into the first team as well under Ange.
Aye, Paul, it shows you how good how good his training and stuff and coaching is. Going back to it, the improvement of guys like Ralston. I mean, I don't know if we could say Beaton, because we always knew Beaton was a decent. Maybe I'm doing him a bit of a disservice here, because I always thought he was a good central defensive.
You know what, Mark? It's like his shoulders are held high, and that's the difference in Beaton.
I think maybe he's kind of. I gave him his due. I think Beaton has probably improved. Look at the difference in Rogic now. I mean, so it just shows you what Terence is saying, when the players are believing the manager and the manager's showing the players and teaching them things, and the players themselves will see this as working. I mean, Tony Ralston, he'll be picking up the papers and that, and he'll be like, my career, I can't believe. Do you get what I mean? I can't believe where my career's went to in the space of 4 or 5 months under this guy.
Do you think, just with the two of you, I go to Terence first, like, do you think Ralston has been the standout performer, Terence, for Celtic so far?
He's up there. He probably from where he was, when he signed the 1-year contract, and everyone went, "Oh my God!" To have been basically capped for Scotland. I mean, it's a fairy tale for the lad. He's certainly up there. Myself personally, I think you got to look at Joe Hart. That's probably standout guy for me. Obviously, Kyogo up front, but
Ralston's the most improved player at the club. I think we've done it. I don't think anybody could argue with that, really.
no, I wouldn't either. But I would think for me, Paul, Ralston definitely has been outstanding. But if you look at straight through the spine of the team, there's something that I mentioned on here before. It's so good now. It's Hart, Vickers, McGregor, Kyogo, assuming they're all fit. And like if you look at three of those, like McGregor's a different guy to where he was 12 months ago. There's people on the forum saying, "Oh, McGregor's gone. He needs to be gone. He needs to be sold." He's a different player because he's been allowed to use his qualities to the best of his ability. Kyogo's sensational. Hart has been sensational. Vickers is sensational. I agree with Mark. Ralston he's definitely, if it was like comeback player of the year, he'd definitely win it. You know what I mean? The guy just transformed his career. Fantastic to see it.
I mean, when he signed that year's contract, everybody, I think, will agree again to us. Everybody kind of thought he's only got that year's contract because we were that low in numbers. Like that. We didn't even have a right back at the club at the time, didn't we? Know when he signed that year's deal.
We didn't. We had no one, Mark, and it was nearly like, with the greatest respect, it was nearly a running joke that they've only given Ralston the year's contract because we don't have a right back. But as soon as we get one, he'll probably be gone next year, or they'll get rid of him in January or something like that. And it was any Celtic supporter that went, "I'm delighted Ralston got a contract," I'd be very surprised.
Mark, here's an interesting one from the Jabba Jobbies that will be interesting to see what Ange will do with Kyogo if and when Mida signs.
But Paul, see, does he don't look a right winger? That's Maeda.
I think
he always seems to be coming down the right hand side.
I think Mark, he's more of an Abada or Tom Roger kind of position, rather than kind of free roll, like not really a no striker kind of a thing, like you know.
I mean, maybe for me, I think Kyogo's going to be like the middleman. I don't think there's any real doubt about that. For me, I think if Maeda signs, I think the front three is going to be Jota, Kyogo, and Maeda. I think that's what the front three is going to be.
But as you said, Celtic play so many games. There's going to be chances to give guys rest. There's going to be rotations. I said, hasn't been able to give a guy a rest, and he said that. So maybe in case, yeah, I'd agree with you. The front three will predominantly be like that. If he needs to give Kyogo rest, and he does have lead in, it'd be great that he goes, well, I can stick him up there, and I can stick a bad the right wing, stick Mickey Johnson in the left wing if Jota needs to break, or whoever it may be. That's what Ange wants. He wants that where he has 2 and 3 players for every position that he can give guys rest when they need it. Because as you've said here more than once, how many games did they play a season? They could play 60 games a season. You know, it's a lot of football.
Especially playing the way we're playing, the high intensity game we're playing, the high intensity training that we're doing now. There isn't much time for rest and that. What about James Forrest? Do you think James Forrest got a long-term future at Celtic?
No, I don't, Mark. Honestly, when myself and you were doing the pod there,
it was just in messages, Paul.
A couple of weeks back, myself and you spoke in the podcast, and I think it's actually frightening how many injuries he's actually picking up at the moment. You know, like small injuries, niggling injuries, and if you're going to have the likes of Abada, Jota, Mida freeside him, Kyogo, where's James Forrest going to fit in there? Do you know?
I'd say that Forrest down to if Maeda comes in, I'd say like your third choice right winger. Really, I'd be it. And that, as you say, Paul, that's if he is actually going to be fit.
Exactly, like it is like his.
I put Forrest in the same kind of category as Big Julian. I don't know if we'll see much of them in Celtic talks going forward.
No, because anytime he's come back, Mark, he's kind of lasted a game, half a game, and he's gone off with another kind of injury. Is James Forrest able to be fit enough to play under an Ange system, Mark? I don't think so. Like, and we said that.
take a lot of hard work for him, Paul.
You know, like
it'll take a lot of hard work. And I spoke about, even Ange speaking again about, this is how he does things. Players get injured, that's what happens. I sort this out our time. But if you're doing it as off, I mean, Forrest missed a lot at the beginning of the Ange, which he talks about as well. Players that didn't get a good pre-season, get a good run in his training regime and things like that. So maybe it's down to that, and Forrest will turn things around and come back super fit. But Ange hasn't seen much of him, so Ange has got to be looking. He's got to be looking at his position there long term. If I can't rely on James Forrest, I need to bring in somebody that I can rely on out there.
Terence, do you want to come in?
Like what I said previously, though, Mark. We said that Forrest, Jacko, and McCarthy, without repeating myself, the three guys didn't do pre-season training, and three guys who struggled every single time they've come back to play. Every single time they've come back to play. Now, James McCarthy did play well the other night, but every time any of those players have come back into the team, it's like what Paul has said. They maybe last a game, they maybe last 40 minutes, and they're gone. And it's no coincidence that these guys weren't there for pre-season, and it's something that Ange has mentioned about guys struggling to get up to fitness, struggling to get up to speed. It's no coincidence that three guys that missed pre-season can't get fit. Like,
do you think the transition would have been as rough? Do you think the transition would have been as rough if, like, Ange took over for somebody like Brendan Rodgers or even Ronnie, who was out more into his fitness side of things?
No, I think Celtic made a big mistake, and I've said it numerous of times, Mark, that if Ange was on the radar, that we're left to believe that he was on Celtic's radar well before they appointed him this season. The best time to take an Ange in was after Brendan Rodgers left. You know, when we had they weren't super fit, but they were fit.
Or even waiting the 6 months as we expected.
6 months, yeah, exactly. And then bringing him, because under Lennon, Mark, like the first team's fitness, I say, went back about 2 seasons. You know, it just, the standards went down. Like, and you've seen messages come out from Nibi's on, like, saying, "Oh, back to the canteen now, and back to the, you know, eating crap and stuff like that." You know what I mean? Like, that was the attitude that was there under Neil Lennon. Do you know what I mean? And it really, like, we saw how unfit we were going into games. 60th minute, we were tired. Hanging. We were out the legs, hanging there. Terms, yeah, exactly. You know,
I actually think, lads, that even all that is, I think if Ange had even come in 3 months before he'd come in, it would have made a difference. I understand. I get you. If he came in after Rodgers, definitely, but he should come in even 3 months before he was actually appointed. That alone would have made a massive difference, because it would have given him a bit more time with players and getting players' fitness up. It would have allowed him to get the guys in that he had. He went into the first game. The team he went into the first game is not even recognisable to the team that starts now. If everyone,
that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, like, well, when I was doing the notes, like at the start, like, we've missed 3 months of the summer, putting all our eggs in Eddie Howe.
Oh yeah, that's all. If he was here 2 or 3 months before the time he came in, I think he would have Celtic would even be further ahead of where they are now. I understand. So I wouldn't even go back as far as the Rodgers side. I'd literally say if he was in 3 months before the time he came in this year, I think we'd have seen massive difference in Ange and the players that had started the first game.
Exactly, because if you look at it, like, Mark, just what Terence was saying there, like, when he came in, Gavin Strachan and John Kennedy were kind of already preparing the team to go down to England, to Wales, to do the pre-season matches. So that, like, half the players, like Cal McGregor and them, they were still on international duty with Scotland. So they were like, a lot of these players didn't even have a pre-season with Ange either. I mean, it was kind of a youth system really that played our pre-season, wasn't it?
No, it was just bits and bobs. You kind of basically, it's like making your dinner the day before Pie Day, Paul, isn't it? You just see what's in the freezer and stick it in the oven, isn't it? That's what Ange was doing for, like, the pre-season games and things like that. I think what that did maybe show him was how kind of down to the bare bones he maybe were when it comes to actual quality and depth of the squad. I mean, we keep going back to it. I mean, making a Yeti captain. That was going to go down as one of the most bizarre things ever in Celtic's history, really, isn't it? That'll be a quiz question in years to come.
But at the same time, Mark, do you think? And I would think. No, I don't know the man. I don't know anything about the man, but I'm only speculating. I would think Ange is a great guy for, if you want to call it, mind games. I think he basically went to a Yeti. You know, because a Yeti, in fairness, a Yeti came back. He came back like a different person.
I know he did have a few good performances. I'll give you that as well, Terence.
But I'm wondering, was he basically kind of saying to Yeti, right, I'm giving you captain's armband. Prove me right. Prove me right that you're the guy I think you are. As opposed to previous managers who would have done the complete opposite. You know, show me how good you're. Ange reminds me so much of a Martin O'Neill style manager, the way he did with like Bobby Petta stuff. A fella who's
man management. He knows whether a player needs a boot up the backside or whether he needs a wee puddle in the Do you know what? He knows what motivates like certain the actual person rather than what work as a team. He knows what to say to certain players and certain people and how to treat them to get the best out of them.
And that's what I think, and that's why I think in the pre-season I think he was gunning for that with a Yeti, because he obviously looked at what he had and he knew, and he goes, look, I'm going to see if I can get a tune out of this guy. And that's why he made him the captain. He wanted him to lead from the front and all that. Now, again, that's just me. Maybe it's nonsense talk, but I just think he was trying to get a tune out of the guy and try and work like of him there with Barkas, and he was calling, "Go on, Barky, come on, Barky, save it, well done." You know, he gave everyone.
He still didn't save it until Sunday.
But in fairness, he gave everyone the chance. He gave everyone a chance. He didn't write anyone off. He basically said, right, this is a fresh slate. Prove to me that you should be the guy that owns that jersey and should be playing for me. You know, I think from a man management point of view and all that, I think he's been fantastic. You know, and like it's like Mark, some fellas you put an arm around, some fellas you give a boot up the arse. As they say, a pat in the back's only a foot from a kick in the arse. Like,
I think it's key as well. What Tuvi touched on is that he doesn't come out and slate the players to the media. You know, he seems to be.
That means it, Paul, but that's never a good idea, is it?
No, it's not. No, but
Terence,
it's just.
Terence touched on that earlier, talking about Neil Lennon. I mean, just tell me any manager that works out for coming out and basically openly slagging off any players. I mean, I don't know what Neil Lennon was. I still don't know what kind of reaction Neil Lennon was expecting to get there.
Things you do behind closed doors.
Things like that should be kept in the dressing room or like on the training ground or the tactics room or wherever they sort out this stuff. But managers should never come out and that's never going to work out for you.
We've probably all played a bit of ball or sport, whatever it would be, and you're inside the dressing room. The manager let flies, and he might let fly if you've done something, or the other guy's done something, or the other guy's done something. But he's not outside. He's not outside in front of a handful of people that are watching the game.
I mean, even if you put it back to your kind of work levels, right? We've all made mistakes at work that you deserve to get bawled out for. But you wouldn't stone. I know it's a bit different for doing it in the press, but you wouldn't stone there and get bawled out in front of somebody. You let your manager bawl you out in front of like folk under you or folk that you work with. You get took into the office out the wine, bawled out of it, and tell to pull your socks up and don't let it happen again.
Exactly, and it just showed, like from as not going back to that happened. We all knew the season was kaput.
And a lack of respect, Terence, really, when you think about it. The manager's got to respect the players as much as the players respect the manager. And if a manager's coming out in the media and slagging off players, the players are just losing all respect for him. Because then they don't know what's he going to say next? Am I getting the blame it next week?
Mm-hmm.
Big time.
It's just the job of the job. He's asked a question earlier, Paul. I'll scroll up for it. One other thing, lads, the potential signings we hope to make are all small fellas. You think the lack of height we'll have would go against us? You've spoken about this before, Paul, with skills, sir. I'll let you handle that one.
I think it is. And We have kind of Shaw there as well, who kind of is a big lad. We Heedy, but it's one of the smallest Celtic sides, Mark, I've seen. Rather than Scales is the biggest in the squad, next to Joe Hart at 6'4". Vickers and things are 6'2", 6'3". They're not the biggest, but certainly against defensive teams, Mark, I think Scales has to play. Not just for his teams, but just for physical presence in the air.
I've said that to you as well, Paul.
For a role
even at set pieces at either end of the park, he adds a physical, big, strong man into both equations there.
You know, but it is one of the, and I think, Mark, going back to being kind of one of the smallest teams, like you could throw that back then at Starfelt, the way he gets into a good challenge, and like we spoke to him, that we're not going to criticise for one game, but it's 2 games in a row now he's come up against a physical forward, and Starfelt's kind of lost control of his own game then. Do you know what I mean? So do we need more physical players in the team? But are they kind of players that Ange wants? You know, does he want physical players, Mark, who maybe aren't able to run the way he wants them? Do you know what I mean?
We even get back to, like, I don't like talking about them, but like the great Barcelona teams, Paul, when they were all the wee kind of guys.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
But they always still had a bit of muscle in defence that could, you know what I mean, like gave height and muscle into defending corners and set pieces. Plus, up the other end, they were a danger at corners.
Yeah, you had the likes of Piqué and Puyol in their day, Mark, who were like, Puyol wasn't the biggest centre back, Mark, but he was tough.
No nonsense.
You know.
Sorry, Terence, I think you've got to say something there.
Just he always no nonsense. He'd stick his head in remote.
I think we could see kind of.
But that's what Vickers
is. That with Vickers, yeah, Terence, I mean, like a no-nonsense defender, he gets stuck in there, like, and he doesn't let a bigger, like, physical forward affect his game. Like, and we saw that with Starfelt now on 2 occasions so far this season, one after the other, St. Mirren and Ting, you know.
It's just something.
Best as well, saying I'm surprised we aren't looking at Sutton, Vinegar, or Hesland, Burley forward to create chances for others. But is that not what Giacomakis is?
That's what Giacomakis, and like, if we are targeting this lad Albert Goodson, Mark, where does this leave Giacomakis then?
But Paul,
do you know what I mean?
Is he not a winger? That's Goodmanson.
He's a winger and a forward. 2 positions.
Were they not looking at a fella from AZ Alkmaar centre forward?
That's who we're talking about there, Terence.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't think he wants it, Mark. You know, this is my opinion. I don't think Ange, and if you look across all his teams and his style of play, that he doesn't want that. I mean, he doesn't want the big centre forward, or it doesn't suit his style of play. Do you get me? You know, Giacomakis kind of slightly different to a physical centre forward when Giacomakis can run. Do you know what I mean? And he's able to play a ball. But I'm so kind of lost the way Giacomakis has gone so far this season with injuries, and it actually wasn't a hamstring, it was something to do with his knee, that he had an operation on his knee this time. You know, so this is another injury that we didn't look about, but just what JFP said there, and we're going to talk about this lad in a minute, is Dawson, but I want to leave that for a minute. But do you think that Ange should be looking at a big centre forward, Mark? Or I personally don't think it's, because I don't think it's going to suit his system.
I don't think it will suit his system either, Paul, but is he going to have to look at plan B when we're struggling against these teams that are parking the bus?
Well, we had a plan B with the 2 up front the other day. Do you get me? Two up front, you know.
But you think, Mark, that's what Giacomakis was brought in for, to be the plan?
I think so, Terence. That's honestly, but I think he was going to be like if it wasn't working out, this was going to be a different option to Kyogo.
Yeah, maybe 20 minutes, half an hour to go if it's still 0-0 against your, where it's like the Livingston games or and that he's brought on, and you can kind of crosses into a big guy up front.
I mean, we can even get back to Brendan Rodgers' last season. We struggled to break down these teams. We struggled to do it. We struggled to do it under Lennon as well, and it just seems to be going on as well. It just seems to struggle against these teams that just park the bus.
But would you not?
I've said it before. For me, when we're playing against these teams, if Yota's fit, Kyogo's fit, these are the type of players that can make the difference in the games. But if they're no fit, we're back to really, really struggling against these teams. We've not got that wee kind of extra spark, that wee je ne sais quoi, will I say? Do you know what I mean? It's just something.
Jake Marcus is only 6.1, so he's not really. And I can see what Bestie's saying. Like, he's not really a Sutton and Van Hesley kind of a forward either. Do you know what I mean? You know.
But go back to your point there, Mark, about breaking down the sides. Like, if you looked at, for me, the pace of play against Livingston at home, the pace of play against St Mirren the other night, and then compare that to the pace of play against St Johnstone, the ball was moved so quick against St Johnstone on a terrible pitch. It was a lot of quick passing, quick moving, quick everything. Against St Mirren there the week before, and against Livingston when we drew it home, it was so pedestrian. It was literally side to side. Fellas were taking 2 and 3 touches, then passing it, then 2 or 3 touches and passing it. The one thing I against St Johnstone, the ball was so quick in between players. And like, there was on numerous occasions where guys were on the left wing or the right wing, like the first goal. It was a brilliant pass by McCarthy. The ball was whipped out. Then it was won. It was whipped out to Juranovic. He puts in a fantastic ball. Abad is blazing through the middle. He puts a great save. He follows it up. But I just think we move the ball so much quicker against St Johnstone. And when we do it against teams that try park the bus, and they can't miss it. The problem is for me is when we slow down and we go to their level, we allow them to go back and they just sit inside their own box and they'll defend it all day. So I'd say if we were there till now, we wouldn't have scored against St Mirren the way we were playing.
Mark, like we spoke about that, like there was kind of a lot of times this season, it was kind of similarities to last season, too slow, pedestrian. Something like what Terence is saying there, you know. And if we did play our game, we should be breaking down these teams. Do you know what I mean?
That's it, Paul. We should be, if I get fully, for me, as I say, a fully fit team. You've got the players like Bogic, Kyogo, Yota. Do you know, if these players that can produce a wee bit of something different.
Kyogo's the key, Mark. When Kyogo isn't kind of playing, like, but bad in fairness to him, like he got his mojo back the other day, like, and he provided some kind of speed up front and stuff like that. But when Kyogo is really not in the team, it's not as a high tempo as when he is in the team, isn't he?
I think I want to see he's running, chasing down the ball with the defenders in that. I think that's a big part of Celtic's game plan now as well. Kyogo's not there to do that job, but maybe doesn't, like high press, whatever you want to call it, doesn't work as well.
Moving on, so like with the upcoming transfer window and stuff like that, like we're expecting players to come in and we're expecting players to leave. Like, are you optimistic about this season ahead? Like, it's only 6 points, Mark. Because 6 points is nothing with the amount of derbies coming up. Just 3 derbies still to play. You know.
No, 6 points is nothing, Paul. When you're sitting here halfway through the season, we've seen bigger turnarounds than that over the years. So 6 points difference doesn't really bother me that much. If we can get players, the players that we've spoke about, if we can get the kind of players in and get everybody fit. I know Young John's been going on about it and that, about he's a treble, but I think we'll still win the league. I honestly do. If we can get new players in January and get over this kind of injury crisis, I still think we'll win the league. I've said to you as well, Paul, even if we do get back into a kind of lockdown scenario where there's no fans around,
talk about that.
I've got to talk to you, okay. Oh, well then, just if we can get out of this injury crisis, keep. It's not even getting players fit, Paul. It's keeping them fit.
Celtic have been screaming for years that our youth players have been leaving the club on a regular basis over the past few seasons without even getting a chance at the first team. We've heard young Morrison on his move to Bayern Munich that Celtic didn't really have a pathway. Another young prospect, young Benayoun, who signed by Brendan Rodgers from Italy, said that Brendan Rodgers at the time had no time for any youth players and really used youth players getting into his first team, and that hindered his progress at Celtic. Last season, we saw the same with Lee Yennin with broken promises to young Dembele, who is now out of contract at the end of the season. This year, on the Ange, we've seen progress in young players being given the chance, and due to injuries in the squad and haven't any senior players left in the team, we've saw young players like Adam Montgomery, Owen Moffat, Mickey Johnson, Ozadi Uhidi, Liam Shaw, Joey Dawson, Stephen Welch, Ugen Henderson, Toby Aloebi, Dane Murray, Dean Dukak, and Ryan Mullen, all getting their chance in the first team or even being in the first team match day squad. Mark, I know we have injury crisis and stuff like that, but not even with the injury crisis, we're constantly seeing young players even on the bench getting the experience of a first team benefits. Like it's really been impressive by Ange, the way he's kind of using our young players at the moment.
Again, Paul, but is it because he's wanting to do that? Is it because he's been forced to do it?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. He's been forced to do it.
Do
you know what I mean? But it's the benefits, Mark, of having.
Benefit the young players have been about the first team squad and even getting their odd chance in a game and that kind of thing. But I still don't. I think that's again, Paul. It's just down to injury problems that we're having, the size of squad we've got. That he's been.
But you go back to previous seasons, Mark, right? And if we had this injury crisis, right, and we had to use these players, right, and they weren't getting any games at reserve level because there was no reserve leagues there, these players wouldn't be able to even run on the pitch, I say, in previous seasons. So we're seeing the benefits of a proper structure within the club, that there seems to kind of some pathway. And I think that it will continue, the Ange, Mark, that we'll see young players on the bench.
I hope it does. I really hope it does. I mean, I've said it for long enough and rammed down my throat about Beaton, keeping young players off out the first team squad and even on the bench, Paul. But I mean, if McCarthy if it's said what I've said it before, I think the three midfielders should be McCarthy, Beggar, and Rogic. But Beaton's earned his place to be that backup now. Do you know what I mean? Whereas before, for me, he hadn't earned that. So I did give him a bit of pelters for just hanging about the club, lifting a wage, and how it was affecting young players' progression. But he's probably a better player now than the young central midfielder. Do you get what I mean? You've got to look at it as that. You can't just put them on the bench because they're young players. They've got to be better than the players that, whether it's through injury or that, of course, but whether you're not going to drop beating for somebody at 19-year-old just because the other player's 19-year-old.
Terence, want to come in?
Yeah, to be honest, it's like Mark said, it's great to see as well, Paul. I mean, I thought young Dawson the other night, I thought he looked.
But there's an option there you want about.
Very unlucky not to score. And like he looked a tall lad. He looks certainly like 6 foot plus. He's 6 foot. Yeah, but he looked. But he had nice touch about him. He had nice movement. He was very unlucky to score. I think the keeper got a strong hand in it. It was the only thing that kept it out. Obviously, the defender was able to get back it off the line. But it was nice. It was nice to see a guy like that, and it must be nice for bench. If I am okay, you don't need to be that lad into the big game, but he was able to do a job for Ange the other night, and it can only help the young lad develop and get more confidence. And it's like I said, the majority of times, Paul, you're going to be starting your main guys, but there might be 2 or 3 of them there that if you did need them, like Montgomery, even have to boil a little bit. He had a couple of great games. I remember particularly he had a great game when he came on against AZ Alkmaar in the qualifiers, Europa League qualifiers. I thought it was a cracking game over there, I think it was. And so Stephen Welch has obviously stepped into the market. He's become more and more a player if you see him. So it's great that there's going to be certainly 2 or 3 of the guys there that Ange can come by if he needs them. You know what I mean? And that can only be good for Celtic, good for Ange and the team.
But would you say Paul, Terence, would you say that any young lads that have come in and hit a bit of, would you say any was actually grabbed it with the scruff of the neck? I mean, Dawson done all right, but to be quite honest, I thought that was a bit of pure miss, Terence. Should have scored that goal the other day.
Yeah, I think Mark. I think the keeper, the St. Johnson keeper had a stormer. To be fair, I know there you're saying he should have scored, but you could revert it and say, well, Abada missed 3 or 4 great chances, but the keeper made 3 or 4 great saves. I think the keeper. I think for me, I think the young lad made a great run. Fair enough, maybe he might have been a bit more clinical. I think the keeper got handed it, Mark. You know what I mean? And
I'm talking about just how will I put it, the difference in how would perceive how I think the difference Terence for what we're saying about him, like I had a good performance, but if that goal would been in, would have been saying, oh, he done really well and he took, do you get what I mean? He'd have a wee bit better, do you get, I don't know how to put it into words, I'm not trying to run the lad down, I'm trying to talk about how different if that goal would have been in, which I think he should have scored, but how different it would be, how we would talk about his overall performance.
The perception would be completely different. If he scores the goal, there's a big perception of him going, oh, first game scored, got to be a good thing.
Look at what the Scales when he came on and scored the goal, everybody was raving. Do you get what I mean? For a few days, everybody was raving about him. And that's one guy that I will say, I think Scales just came in and took his chance well.
I tell you, when he played out on the left side the other night, he put in some balls. His crosses when he was on the left hand side there, when he was further up, he really whipped in some fantastic balls. I thought he really went well the other night again. And I think it's down to the more game time he plays, the more comfortable he starts to feel, I'd say, in that setup. You know what I mean? And the more he becomes accustomed. I do.
The more he'll force Ange to make a choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Young Dawson hasn't come in and done anything really to make Ange think that I can maybe rely on. Do you get what I mean? The guy's only had played a full game and I'm slagging him off. Really sorry about that, but I'm just talking about how young players they need to come in and grab the opportunity, because Celtic's got money to spend. If they don't grab their opportunities, that's the kind of thing I'm trying to get at.
You're kind of looking at it from the point of view, if you look at young Dawson and say Abada's first 3 or 4 games, everyone was like, oh my God, he's unbelievable. So I get where you're coming from, the view of young Dawson and say the view of Abada, who's 19 or 20. In the first game or two, Abada stood out a mile. I suppose I just meant that if touch wood it doesn't occur, but if Celtic were in a dire crisis and we were saying we don't have a striker, at least we know then the young lad could do a kind of a job for us if we were needed. That's all I would say.
Aye, I get you now, aye.
You know,
I wasn't running the lad down, no. I mean, he's only 18-year-old, and we didn't even see him playing a full game. I thought he could have done better with the goal right enough, but that's just been pernickety, probably.
Who's impressed you so far, like from the youth system? Who's really kind of stepped up and taken his chance? Would it be young Welch?
I would say Welsh. Even Montgomery, when I've seen him, I think Montgomery's been a bit unlucky, to get some of your game time, Paul. Because again, he's never really let us down. He put in some good performances in Europe and that as well, didn't he? So I'd say Montgomery as well.
2 for me would be Welsh and Montgomery as well. The only thing I would say in the Montgomery one is I think they need to find the right position. I'm not sure is he a left foot myself. I think he's probably better further up the pitch. If I don't think they're weak, they play in vertical.
Well, Montgomery in his early career, Terence, was a striker.
Yeah, I heard that.
When he first came to Celtic, he was a striker. So maybe him kind of playing the role that Scales played the other night on the left wing, kind of playing just behind Abada and getting up in front of Abada would kind of suit Montgomery more than an out and out left back.
I just think in 1 or 2 of the games. No, you can point it out, but I know certainly in the 1 or 2 of the European games, I think the roasted for the game. No, I know team did, but there's 1 or 2 occasions where he he hasn't had the best game at full back, but again, that's very. I think the young lad, he's developed pushed up a little bit further than the full back role, than me personally.
One player that I expect would have been called up to the first team if it wasn't due to injury would be the young lad Bosman Law. He would have been definitely called up, and I would like to see him. But I'd like to see more of a Ozara or a Heedy Mark. I think we're speaking about a physical presence in the team, but he has a physical presence, Mark, that could be badly needed for Celtic in these coming games as well.
And he's another one that's not really let us down either, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about physical presence, but forgot. I mean, Ralston's a big lumpy boy as well, which I thought. And he seems to be alright, more like defending the ball, Paul. But you know how Ralston can be a bit soft when he's going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Funny thing about that lad, though, Paul, if you're saying that you're a giddy fella, the problem is he's right full. Is he going to play ahead of Ralston? Is he going to play ahead of Juranovic? Probably no. And
no, he definitely won for Ange came out, because myself and Mark were questioning it, and Ange came out and said, look, these lads were signed as prospect signings, like they're ones for the future. But that's right. At the moment, I think it's a great time to be a young lad at Celtic. At the moment, having a manager like Ange that's going to bring these lads in and around the first team, have them training with the first team. And I think we spoke about it before, Mark, like we didn't know what to take of the Codes League when it was starting up, but it has been a big benefit to Celtic this season that our young players are getting first team football.
Well, it's obviously doing them a bit of good, Paul. I mean, as I said, I wasn't a great fan of it. I didn't see any kind of really any pros in joining it, but even if it is just keeping them fit and getting them playing competitive games, I suppose then you've got to say it's been a success.
I think that's what it's kind of been about, Mark, is that our young players getting kind of competitive football rather than playing kind of non-competitive matches, really, or no matches at all. And that it just shows the benefits, Mark, that when the young players are called into the first team, that they're fit. Like the Codes team now is playing the exact same system as what Ange is playing in the first team. So you can see the benefits of having Ange at the club now, and that's why I think it's actually a benefit to our club that for any young player, like it is an exciting time, I think, to be at Celtic rather than other years that we previous managers who had no interest in the youth system.
What happens if Ange leaves, but Paul?
That's what I'm saying, yeah. That's going to come down, Mark, to
that's how I keep
the board getting
a
director of football. That's coming down to.
I mean, if somebody comes
Celtic
in,
coming up with the modern game, yeah.
I mean, if Ange leaves then and the next guy comes in, it's everything's just ripped up and started again. Whatever system he wants to keep playing that.
Is this not what Gordon Strachan is kind of doing for the board at the moment, kind of getting this structure in place, doing recommendations to them?
Gordon Strachan can't still be there, Paul.
Don't know, yeah.
It was only meant to be for a 3-month consultancy thing. That must be well earned done by now.
And I've heard nothing about it, Mark. I had nothing once he's been done or.
But there was a non-story, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody says he's coming in. Or the people on Twitter, Stratton's coming in, then he's going to get named director of football and he's got to get this and he's got. And he was still working with Dundee, doing a bit of consultancy work for Celtic. So, and that was months ago, so he must have done his job and bolted it.
Got a nice pay package, I say, Mark.
Definitely when I wear a good bit richer, I'd reckon.
But you've raised a good point.
His boy get a new iPad out it.
Mark, you raised a good point that what if Ange Dodd leaves? What happens to the Celtic with our youth players? Are we going to go back to square one where we're going to get a manager who wants to spend one? But this is what
anything, Paul.
Yeah.
I said that before on the podcast. Once again, seem to have put all their eggs in the one basket. That basket's Ange. But what happens if fans decide at the end of the season he doesn't want to hang about? I'm saying that's got, but you've got to think of these kind of possibilities.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
If we don't win the league, do the fans turn on Ange and want him out the door? Do the board say that's not good enough and want him out the door? Then we're back to square one. With no director of football, no head of recruitment. The scouting seems to all be coming through Ange and his contacts and Celtic and their usual contacts. There's nothing, JFP's on the charm. See, that's the last time when he's available for a podcast, because I know JFP's into all this stuff and that. Nothing's changed behind the scenes, Paul.
We'll talk
and
about...
I know you're going to go on about that, but still, I've said it for the last few weeks as well. We've got to kind of, because we fell into this trap under Lowell. I used to talk about Lowell on the forum and things that was going on behind the scenes and how he was dominating the football department and all that. People said, oh, it was sour grapes. How can you moan when we're winning 7, 8 and 9 titles in a row and stuff like that? But look where we ended up.
That's what's overshadowing the market at the minute. If we were in the same position as we were in last year, everything off the pitch would be brought to the fore. It's the fact that Celtic are doing well on it.
You're not allowed to talk about it because everything's going all right on the pitch. You're just moaning for the sake of moaning. But we've seen where we ended up when it all went tits up the last time under Lennon and Lowell. And if Ange, for one reason or another, isn't he there in a year, 6 months, 18 months, what happens to Celtic then?
I fully agree, and that's the problem. It's the situation that Celtic are in now with Ange, with the team, winning the first trophy, playing football, stadium full every week. It's completely overshadowed off the pitch. Like there's no, and hasn't brought anyone to my knowledge that he hasn't brought in anyone better than maybe the sports science guy, but he hasn't brought in his own assistant. All the stuff off the field, as you said, the director of football, there's no sign of it. The head of recruitment, there doesn't seem to be much of that. Everything like head of stroke sports science stroke. Everything seems to be and it's like what you said. If Ange won the league, Ange won the cup. You said I watch for someone down the Premier League doesn't go. We'll definitely go. He's a good eye for talent. He's after getting this guy, and this guy. We'll go for him. And like you said, who's to say that you know what? That's a dream for me to go to the Premier League. I'm not saying he would, not saying he wouldn't, but like then all of a sudden you go back and okay, where do we go to? Where do we go for manager? Or where do we go for this? Or where do we go for that? And it's a huge risk that's been taken.
Seems on the topic as well. Like, of course, Michael Nicholson was appointed full-time Celtic CEO. But Mark, like, it's still concerning. Like we've still heard nothing from Nicholson himself. The way he wants the club to go going forward. What is there only going to be new appointments going forward? Like, it seems to be an ongoing silence at the club, and the issues you're raising there, like director of football and Ange's own coaches and stuff like that, like moving the club into.
Hold on 2 seconds, Paul. Terence, do you want to hang up, bud, and I'll call you back on this?
Yeah, we'll do.
Right, on you go, Paul. Sorry, Terence. Sounds went a wee bit wonky there.
It's concerning, Mark, like that. There's still no word from a new CEO, like, and I'm led to believe that Ian Banker has a lot of strength in this boardroom, Mark, since Peter Lord left, and maybe he's pulling the strings at the club at the moment. And is Nicholson going to fall as a puppet to Ian Banker going forward? I'd like your opinion on that.
I've heard the same kind of thing, Paul, about Banker, but I've always taken the impression that Banker's been a bit of a doddery old man, to be honest, Paul.
No, I don't. I'm getting to think, Mark, like, obviously, if you put Dominic McKay thing into things, right, I think Banker's position came under threat by him.
It's starting to look as if Banker maybe.
Yeah, and
it's been him and Lowell that's been the kind of
main men.
Aye, whereas for
And-
years we all kind of
yeah.
thought, I thought that Lowe kind of just bullied the Celtic board, to be honest, Paul.
Mhm.
His ego, Lowe walked in, but Lowe said goes. But again, we spoke about what the actual roles of these people that on football boards and that is. And I suppose the chairman has got to have a good bit of power in there as well, so. I mean, maybe
It's the
his
day-to-day
banker that's-
running.
aye.
It's basically the day-to-day running of the club, Mark. Like
Well,
bankiers, it seems to.
banker and whoever the CEO is, who'll the day, she'll say the day-to-day running. But as I said, I just always felt as if Lowe was maybe the kind of big bully in the room. But maybe that's a bit. Maybe that's the kind of impression bankers want to give out, that he's a kind of, all kind of grandpa kind of figure. But there's still the exact same problems in the boardroom for me, because there's nothing changed apart from
No,
Peter
I
Lowe
think,
sitting
Mark,
there in boardrooms.
as long as Banker and the lad Wilson are still there, like nothing's ever going to change at Celtic, and that's what I think. Appointing within in Nicholson is another way of them of gaining the control they have over the club, because I think Nicholson is just going to be a yes man to them. Is going to be maybe a puppet to Banker and that.
But again, Paul, it shouldn't matter who your CEO is if you've got a director of football in there running the football side of things, and the CEO.
Yeah, but do they? That's what I'm saying. Though, does maybe the lads want that, Mark? The likes of Banker and stuff like that.
Is Nicholson going to leave where Peter Lowe left off? Nicholson going to start where Peter Lowe left off, and actually he's deciding what players and that we send. Just turn you back on there, bud.
I am, mate. I am indeed. Yeah, I am.
That's a bit clearer for me now.
You know, like it is like it's like if you're looking, Mark, like when Peter Law was there, he total control. Now I think Banker's total control. Do they want the director of football coming in? You know, are they going to get like speak questions like are they going to get more involved in the first team? And is this going to cause an unsettling environment with Ange on the board, as we've seen before, like with Wim Jensen?
That's another kettle of fish, ain't it? Back in the days with Jock Brown and that. But Paul, see, even with Lowe with John Park beside him, we were still to get what I mean. At least there was somebody having an input in the football side. But Lowe was it was all just figures. You seemed to see it didn't matter if they were good players. It really, I mean, we've been through it 100 times. We're not going to list all the disasters that we signed under Lowe, but we just need to get this sorted out once and for all, and have some kind of people working behind the scenes that have got a long-term future for Celtic, and no, just like our plans only last for as long as we've got this manager / head coach in charge, and then once they go, we'll just change everything again.
Like that's the problem, like is that Nixon hasn't come out and said anything, Mark. Do you know what I mean?
Look at Man United, Paul.
Shambles.
Probably the biggest club in the world, arguably the biggest club in the world, and they're a complete shambles behind the scenes, because for years it's been just money men making the football decisions, and never ever works.
Ange won't stay if that happens. And Ange does not strike me as a man that is going to sit idly by and let certain individuals who don't know the football dictate to him about buy this player and buy that player. You should buy this player, you should buy that player. Ange doesn't strike me as that type of individual. And I think if the board, whoever it may be, Ian Banky or Nichols or them, go down that road with Ange will be the kind of guy that will go, look, thanks, but no thanks, and he'll leave. Because Ange does not strike me as the kind of guy that you're gonna treat him like that and get away with it.
Their best as well. Say Nicholson still not come out and say anything to the fans.
But that's what I'm saying, Mark. Even at the AGM, it was Banker that controlled it. But that's what I'm saying. Like that's when I started thinking, is Banker now the main man at the club, Mark? Do you get me? You know, and that's
he might be kind of Paul Rank.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I mean,
more kind of a senior because he's at the club longer, Mark. He's kind of the most senior at the club, is it?
Plus, he is the actual chairman of the board, which he runs the actual board. Even when Peter Law was there, like guys that are better known to me in business, when it comes into these high power business meetings, the chairman he runs the show in that boardroom. Even though probably Peter Law's the most influential, powerful man in the room, but maybe Banker's just as you say, Paul, maybe just his fancy taking on. I can run this full shebang myself without Peter Lawwell being there.
It's frightening.
I can do that.
Yeah, it's frightening, Mark, that being a Celtic supporter, like, and if our club is going to go down that road and not bringing anyone in to run the club in the football way, and have relying on the likes of Bankia running the club, like, we're in a long way to go, Mark, before we see changes at Celtic, I think.
I've even joked to you as well, Paul, what about Ange becoming like the director of football in 2 years or something like that, which for me would be ideal, the way you know how he wants to plan things. But it would show, see if they even came out and said that was the plan. Ange is going to be running things in the next 2 years. You're transforming the club. 2 year Ange will take up the director of football role. Bring in
like Manchester United with the father Ragnar.
Aye, just show some kind of forward planning. That there's people in the club that are looking further forward in this season.
That's what it is, Mark. It just seems to be season after season, or we'll see how we get on, and we'll take it the next step, maybe another time. We'll just concentrate on something else this time.
But they came out that first press conference with Don McKenna on by modernising the club, will be doing this, will be doing. They've done nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing apart from the sports science guy. I've appointed a sports science guy, which, should we really be celebrating the Celtic have appointed a top sports science guy, Paul?
No, should have been there already. Yeah.
That should be a given for a club your size, Paul.
I've
looked at what's happening. There's a new window opening, Paul. So who's making these decisions on transfers in that? I
think it's down to Ange again, Mark, and this is going to be, instead of Ange concentrating on getting our players match fit during the winter break and stuff like that, he's going to be sitting around the table with transfer targets with likes of Nicholson and Banker, when it shouldn't be his job.
No,
he should have an input.
No, I should have an input, definitely, but it shouldn't be. I fear, dude, every manager's allowed to pick their own players. A couple, do you get what I mean? You see it down in England and places, players follow managers about their favourite players and that. The manager's allowed to have a good input on who you're signing, especially if he's got the kind of experience in that Ange has got. But somebody else has still got to be looking at signings that are going to see what we're talking about. You set up players that are going to be good in 2 years' time.
But even if the board and the powers to be came out and gave an explanation as to why there aren't these people in place, it may be what people want, but at least it would be some kind of information. If they came out and they said, well, the reason we don't have director of football is this, or the reason we don't have whoever it is, the head scout in at the minute is this, at least if they, not saying it would solve the problem, but at least if they were able to give some information to the fans and support and say, these are the reasons why these positions haven't been filled yet. It's rank amateur, don't get me wrong, but at least at least fans would have something to go on. They may not agree with it, but at least it's something. Whereas at the minute it's just like this is laughable. Like, this was like Celtic were into the director of football back in the Eddie Howe point. There was another fellow from home that's going to be
Richard Hughes
was coming in. Like, how far back is that? Like? So that's what I would say. I would like them if they're not going to do it, or if they have a timeline to say, well, we're going to do this at the end of the season. We've spoken to Ange, and Ange is happy enough to continue with this, or whatever way. As I said, it might be the people like, but at least if they came out and were able to explain the situation, it might have shed some light on it. At the minute, it's just complete in the dark. Like,
realistically, the club haven't really ever come out and said they wanted director of football, have they, Mark? It was kind of all kind of fans, really, wasn't it?
Because, Paul, we're meant to be one of the biggest clubs in the world. Every club in the world, every big club in the world, the people above the head coach and the manager that are looking after the long-term future of the club. You go to Man City, in places like that, Man City's, every transfer doesn't rely on Pep. Every transfer doesn't rely on Klopp at Liverpool. Look at what I keep coming back to Ajax, where you've got Van der Sar and Mark Overmars. One's the chief executive and one's the sporting director. Other clubs managers leave and they don't fall apart because they've got these people behind the scenes. People say Brendan Rodgers couldn't work with a director of football. Well, he wanted John Kennedy to get the job, plus Leicester's had a director of football for years. I can't mind his name off the top of my head, but he's working under a director of football down at Leicester.
I'm sure he had one at Liverpool as well, Mark, to be fair. There's no way he didn't have a director of football when he was Liverpool manager.
No, Liverpool had a committee. I did a kind of committee. He was part of the committee. They had a committee that decided on transfers and that for them too. But it's not, I mean...
There's the manager, like, there's still people above the manager that are there involved in making decisions. It's not just all that one guy. Like, we seem to have left it with Ange, like, shockingly.
New lad on the chat there says John Duncan and should have the last say on player recruitment. Really, he picks the team. Like, that's what we're saying. Like, that and should have an input in the players. Like, but and shouldn't be spending his whole winter break chasing players either, Mark. Like, that's the kind of point we're making. Like, he shouldn't be chasing the players. Like, that should be.
He should have his input on. Like, I think we need X type of player. We need somebody to do this job, and then he'll probably have his own ideas of players. But go and let other guys go and look at the kind of look at the players that like the actual stats in that throw up, Paul. Yeah, well, I mean, look at all the different players that are available for that position, and then decide between them all. You can't. I mean, so should Neil Lennon just have every final say on who Celtic were signing? That would be a bigger disaster than it was with him and Lovell doing the job.
I don't think Lennon had any saying whatsoever at Celtic, Mark. So.
And that's, I mean, that's the thing about it. Peter Law was running. He was doing the job of a director of football without being qualified to do it.
Even going down to Terry, sorry.
When you look at the likes of, say, Man City, and a guy like manager of the quality of Pep Guardiola, like, you guarantee there's a guy above him and Guardiola saying, look, I need, as Mark is saying, we're struggling. I need you to go and look and get me centre back or a full back or a left wing or whatever. And I'm sure your man will come back and go, look, these are guys we've been looking at, and Guardiola might have a few guys in mind as well. And they'll go
Begaristine or something it is. Don't get I see teams like Man City. I think they brought all the Barcelona people with them terms.
He did, yeah.
Maybe Pep's a bit of a bad example of that, but is it still that team? But it's still people doing the job that Pep shouldn't be doing. He's there to win them trophies and be the team on the park and let the rest of them concentrate on the next signings, the next window.
Yeah, but what I was meaning by it, Mark, is you have a fella like Guardiola, who was manager in Barcelona, who was manager in Bayern Munich, who was manager in Man City, and it pretty much probably in every one of those stages, there's the person, there's the director of football or whatever they want, the terminology they want to use, that's in place in those clubs, that's there to work with the manager, that's there to help the manager. Basically, you manage the team, I'll do the rest of this. And we'll work between the two of us, and you tell me what you need and I'll go get it, and we'll go through it, we'll discuss it, and if he's the guy you want, we'll go get him. And this is kind of stuff. Whereas at Celtic, it's like, Ange, I need X, Y, and Z. All right, I better go and sort it out myself. Like, it's Ange's identified.
Exactly, Terry, exactly.
Ange's identified these guys in Japan, and he was talking about some young lad in is it Iranian lad, some young lad who's supposed to be a fantastic young player that obviously no one would look at because it's out that side, that neck of the world. But he has to juggle the team, juggle all the other stuff that it's been thrown at him. While it shouldn't be, but at the same time, yet they turn around and say we should be Champions League. We should. Well, you should be if you can't run an organisation properly. You're hard. You know what I mean? You're never going to be at that level. As I said, you look at Overmars and those lads, and you look at the top clubs, Munich.
Look at City. Look at how many times Chelsea chop and change their manager. The arse doesn't collapse out of Chelsea every time they change their manager.
Because as you said, the structure's in place. It's like it's like, Ajax play a certain way. It doesn't. They could have a new manager every month, but the team will play the exact same way. This is the way we play in Ajax. They have the sporting director or director of football is in place, and basically the whole structure of the house is in place. If they happen to that the chimney falls off, the chimney falls off. In Celtic, what happens is the house falls down. That's the difference, and until they rectify that, I think Celtic will be getting away with it because they're doing well on the pitch. If they weren't doing well on the pitch, I think they'd be carnage like it was last season. Mm-hmm. I really do. The way they're running it off the pitch.
Moving on, we could talk about the board all night, and we spoke about the Celtic board numerous times during the podcast. As JFP said, 64 podcasts. We were discussing this exact same team, Mark, when we had JP on the podcast last. So with COVID cases on a rapid rise in the SPL, the winter break has become early this season. Celtic were one of the first clubs to put it through to the SPL about an early winter break. 2 clubs voted against the winter break. So Celtic's next game will be on the 17th of January at home to Hibs. Do you agree with the winter break, or are you going to be a fan behind the closed doors if possible going forward? Mark, you said something to me last week. Do I think the standards would slip if we went behind closed doors, because many Celtic fans believe that having no fans in the stadium last season had a major effect on this Celtic team. Do you want to just go through that remark? I know it was a factor last season, but there were just so many factors last season, Mark, that affected the Celtic team, and I don't think it'd be an issue this season, Mark, with Andrew Celtic manager if it was played behind closed doors.
I think just the actual levels of professionalism that are that high again, as we spoke about, Paul. You look at players like Joe Hart, Callum McGregor, their experience. Do you think Callum McGregor would want to go through another season like last season? Mm-hmm. Guys like Rogic, the experience there, Kyogo. I just think a lot of Celtic supporters use it as a bit of an excuse for last season, to be honest, Paul. Mm-hmm. It's like, the players come out and they say, the atmosphere at Celtic Park, it's one of the best in the world, etc., etc. But other players come out and say, as soon as that first whistle goes, I don't hear what the fans are singing. If you ask a player about the abuse they take on a park, Paul, they'll say, I don't hear that. But you can hear somebody singing your name. It depends what question you ask them, they're trying to answer. And I think a lot of Celtic fans are using that as a bit of an excuse for last season's meltdown. But if we go back into that scenario where we're playing behind closed doors, I don't see the standards slipping to the extent that they did last year. To me, it's not really that big a deal, really, Paul, I don't think.
Terence, Joe, obviously, I spoke to you on Discord about it, like you're a big believer that this COVID winter break had to come in because of rising cases when the game.
Yeah, and the thing about it, Paul, is this is the rising cases and the COVID coming in. To me, it has nothing to do with it. It's the health. It's the health of being.
To spot on, it's not to do with football. No, it's a bigger picture. It's about people's health.
You're going to have the odd idiot, like there's particular idiots on a certain channel that was on the weekend saying, we should be playing behind closed doors. That might have something to do with the fact of who he supports and the fact that they were playing Aberdeen and Celtic away in the next 2 games.
Mm-hmm. Do you think maybe that for them, Terence, they vote no against it because Celtic at the moment are so ravaged with injuries, and if it was behind closed doors, that's why they voted against the winter break being taken early?
Paul said, because what team would vote for the winter break not to occur, but they've called off the Celtic B match because they want
because of fans not being left at the game, yeah.
You can piss in my head, but don't tell me it's raining. Like, do you know what I mean? That's just nonsense. Like, the bottom line, Paul, it's a health. This is a health situation. Take football. The bottom line is Celtic could go back and they could all go back in the first date that you mentioned there, and there still might be no fans in the stadium. So it is. Yeah, look, it's very timely that's for Celtic because they've had lads have come down with COVID and they've had a lot of injuries. From that side of it, yeah, is it timely for Celtic? Of course it is. But is that a reason for it to be called off? No, it's not. The reason it's to be called off is because you look at for argument's sake, we're here in Ireland and it's 9,000, 11,000, 10,000 cases a day. In England, it's probably 60, 70, 80,000. I don't know. I've seen figures like 70,000, crazy figures. That's the important side of it. Try, because like Ange said, and the interview asked him the question, as he said, he doesn't mind if it's all the away fans. He wants to see fans back in the stadium. He said, if it means that in 2 months' time or whatever it is, that they can get even half a stadium, then he's delighted for it. Like, it may be a case that there are no fans back at the stadium, and hopefully by that stage that this variant has kind of deteriorated and it allows people to get back to living some kind of a normal life again. That's the most important thing. And look, people are back in the stadium, great. If there's a full stadium, great. Half stadium, whatever. But they're going to go back playing at that stage. So look, this is more of a health thing than a football thing. And anyone that thinks otherwise, they have to have brain cells, to be fair to me.
I'm just surprised they haven't asked for the season to be finished. You know?
They've been hinting about it, Paul.
Jesus
Christ.
I've
seen some stuff on social media and that saying about it.
Mm-hmm.
100% with Terence is saying this is bigger than football. They're Mikey. I mean, even the day on the forum when I put up, I said about Mikey and that, there was still folk trying to post up saying, this and that about Nicola Sturgeon, this, Nicola Sturgeon, that. Nicola Sturgeon taking advice off guys that are brainier than us, Paul, and know more about this than people like us. Do you know what I mean? They're none of us, I don't know who looks as biochemists or something. They're none of us, we've got to take this kind of advice. And see if it's putting your nose out to join in that, well, just deal with that. You've just got to deal with that.
The only reason, Mark, they didn't agree with this is because Celtic came up with the first, and Celtic were one of the first clubs, that's exactly it was always about that, Mark. That Celtic were one of the first clubs to put it out there to take the winter break early, and it just started, turns out.
If Celtic had said the opposite, if Celtic said we should play on Rangers, it's that simple. If Celtic said no, we should play on, Rangers would say no, we should go for winter break.
And even so, like, sorry, Terence, go on.
No, it's like Mark said. Look, if Celtic said that's blue, they'll say it's white. They're never going to agree on it. Like, that's all the one.
So, like, of course, the transfer window opens in a couple of days. Like, we're expecting, Mark, to see new players within the squad up and running by a first game against Hibs on the 17th. But we're also expecting outgoings, Mark. Is there any players who you think, Mark, that's maybe play their last game in the Celtic jersey before next match?
I think he'll be back, Paul, unless Hart's injury is actually a serious injury, which nobody's really cleared up either why he's been missing, whether it's COVID or whether it's something more serious. But I think if Hart's going to be back, Barkas will be away on loan at least. Paul, it's hard to think.
Bolingoli?
Bolingoli, definitely.
I even forgot about him there. There you go. Bolingoli, he's another one I'd say that will be away next month.
There was rumours going around Mickey Johnson maybe going up and on to Dundee United. Do you think would that be a benefit to him going out on loan, or do we actually still need him within our squad? Because we don't know if we're going to get these transfer targets. Is the question mark, really, isn't it? Like, we're all going to say we're expecting new players to come in, but there's so much. It's only a month, really. You have to get these deals done.
Well, I think Barkas and Bolingoli, I think that too. I mean, as I said, as long as Hart's fit, we wouldn't really miss any of the two of them at all, would we? I mean, Bolingoli's that far out the picture. But I think it maybe be just a case of some of the younger fringe players maybe getting out on loan for a bit of experience, Paul.
Exactly. just before we go, here's a stat for you on one of our former players, Ryan Christie, has the most shots on goal down in the first division, and he actually has the most shots without a goal down in the championship. So they're after getting the Gaelic football or that.
Bournemouth's been a team he's always wanted to play for.
Yeah, so they're after getting the Gaelic footballer that we always thought Ryan Christie was by putting the ball over the bar. So that just shows, Mark, like what we've been saying for Christie for years. If you could keep the ball on the ground and keep the ball on target, Christie could be hitting 20, 30 goals a season, like, you know what I mean?
They're best to say none of them were even in target.
No, off target. 35 shots off target.
See, but we spoke about that, Paul. We thought that Lennon had said to him, like, like Chris Commons used to do. And Lennon had just said to him, look, see when you get the ball, just work your way and find a shot and take it. But obviously, it doesn't look like that.
Who does Ryan Christie?
Kind of numbers and still without Lennon.
Who does he think he
Lennon
is?
tell the Bournemouth manager that's what today.
Yeah, exactly. Neil Lennon's the new director of football. That we don't know about.
Behind the scenes at Bournemouth. I just give the ball to Christie and tell him to shoot. He'll win his 2 games a season.
Yes, exactly. That's it for tonight, lads. For myself, I'd like to wish you all a Happy New Year on the live chat tonight. Happy New Year to Terence for joining us again tonight. Terence, do you want to say anything before we go?
Oh, just same with yourself, your Mark and Paul. Thanks for everything you do, lads. You do. It's a great show. Obviously, I always appreciate when you ask me to come on, and wish you both a Happy New Year, and yourself and your families, and keep safe, keep well, and all the lads on the live chat and on the forums as well. Just keep safe and keep well, and we'll get back to normal times sometime soon with the help of God.
Mark, you want to close the show, buddy?
Right, thanks again, Paul, for you and everything you do behind the scenes. Terence for coming on, he's always reliable. It's always good to get him on. All the lads in live chat, John Duncan, JFP, Bestie, the Jabra Jobbies. Thanks very much for joining us. Remember and hit the like button. If you've not subscribed, please do so, as it helps us get up algorithms on YouTube. God bless, have a good new year, and I hope you all had a nice Christmas. Hail, hail.